U.S.-China trade row, what has happened so far? Donald Trump campaigned for election on a promise to make trade fairer for the U.S., and his push to do so has him fighting with some of America's oldest trading partners. The U.S. has been embroiled in a tit-for-tat trade battle on several fronts over the past few months. The one that's creating the most interest is the one with China, as the world's two largest economies wrangle for global influence. China has accused the U.S. of launching the largest trade war in economic history. Mr. Trump has imposed taxes on imports from China, Mexico, Canada and the EU, to encourage consumers to buy American products. All of these countries have retaliated. The U.S. president's hardline on trade, which also saw him withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Pact, TPP, last year, marks a striking change from the free trade policies that have governed the exchange of goods for decades. What's happened in the trade war so far? The U.S. this week slapped a second round of tariffs on Chinese goods and China retaliated in kind. This means the U.S. and China have now placed 25% tariffs on a total of $50 billion of one another's goods. The latest tariffs that took effect on 23 August apply to a vast range of goods in 279 product categories, including semiconductors, plastics, chemicals and railway equipment, and fridges. China's list of 333 U.S. product categories includes coal, copper scrap, fuel, buses and medical equipment. Mr. Trump says he wants to stop the unfair transfers of American technology and intellectual property to China and protect jobs. Tariffs, in theory, will make U.S.-made products cheaper than imported ones, so encourage consumers to buy American. The idea is they would boost local businesses and support the national economy, but many U.S. companies and industry groups have testified to the U.S. Trade Representative's office that their businesses are being harmed. A third round of tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods could come as soon as next month and could have a tariff of 25%, more than twice the tax originally planned for that lot. At the height of tensions, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to tax all of China's $500 billion imports into the U.S. The dispute dates back to January, when the U.S. slapped controversial tariffs on imported washing machines and solar panels. That was considered Mr. Trump's most significant trade move since his decision to pull the U.S. out of the TPP and renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. Is the U.S. only in a dispute with China? Earlier this year, the U.S. started charging levies on the imports of steel and aluminium from the European Union, Mexico and Canada. U.S. businesses have to pay a 25% tax when they import steel from those places and a 10% levy to buy aluminium from them, but these tariffs led to retaliation. The European Union imposed tariffs on €2.8 billion worth of U.S. goods in June on products such as bourbon whiskey, motorcycles and orange juice. In June, Mexico announced new tariffs on U.S. products, including whiskey, cheese, steel, bourbon, and pork. Canada imposed retaliatory tariffs on $16.6 billion Canadian worth of U.S. products on 1 July. Who has been worst affected so far? The International Monetary Fund says an escalation of the tit-for-tat tariffs could shave 0.5% off global growth by 2020. Separate releases recently indicated growth in China's manufacturing sector slowed in July and one measure of U.S. consumer sentiment falling due to tariff concerns. Morgan Stanley estimates that a full-blown escalation of the trade dispute could knock 0.81 percentage points off global gross domestic product. This scenario would involve the U.S. slapping 25% tariffs on all goods from both China and the EU, and similar measures imposed in response. Among companies, the car industry seems to have been the most affected so far. Major car makers recently warned that changes to trade policies were hurting performance. Ford and General Motors have lowered profit forecasts for 2018, citing higher steel and aluminium prices caused by new U.S. tariffs. There are also concerns that the trade war could hurt other aspects of U.S.-China relations. Mr. Trump recently accused China of manipulating its currency, a sign that the row could be spreading to foreign exchange markets. Smaller Asian countries further down the supply chain could also suffer. According to The Economist, 30% of the value of the goods China exports to America originates from third-party countries. Ultimately, China may not have as much firepower as the U.S. to retaliate, given the U.S. buys much more from China than it sells to them. This could mean it would find alternative ways to fight back, such as making life difficult for American companies in China by increasing red tape.